Those questions are not even on Germany's agenda, to set explicit rules, to set standards of behaviour, and to take everybody else's debt. What happened on Sunday is a demonstration of the vacuum at the heart of this power structure, and at the same time, its deadly power. So what do we learn? In my book that is coming out this month, called Post-Capitalism, what I argue is that neoliberalism is not only a false system, but a broken system. And that this episode, of course, just forms the latest iteration of the problem that neoliberalism can't run the world. It cannot lead to growth. It only leads if you have fiat money, which is money invented by central banks, combined with a highly financialized economy. All that leads to is repeated instances of boom and bust. Boom, bust, dot-com boom, housing boom. We're now in another boom-bust cycle. But boom-bust cycles are not steady states, because every bust wipes out wealth where? At the level of the state. Every bust has to be bailed out by states, and therefore what you get, you print $12 trillion in the world to save neoliberalism, which is what happened after Lehman Brothers, and you inflate the financial sector of the economy, and then you impose austerity to pay for the bailout, which deflates the real sector of the economy. This is like a machine that just cannot work. It's operating on two completely different circles, and it will just keep breaking down. Worse, neoliberalism has stalled the 200-year pattern of industrial capitalism. I am a big fan, and have in the book tried to revive and modernize the theories of Nikolai Kondratyev, the Russian socialist revolutionary, which means peasant socialist, economist, who invented the idea of 50-year long cycles in economic development. A lot of work's been done on this by the Venezuelan economist Carlota Perez, whose work I respect and have tried to build on. But to summarize, the 50-year cycle usually goes like this: technological innovation, rollout of technological innovation, new forms of capitalism, business model, consumption, which lead to higher living standards and higher skills and higher human development for about 20 to 25 years. It hits a wall, because all things hit a wall. And the first instinct of those in charge, of the elite that has risen through that system, is always to seek a low technology, low wage solution to the problem. To keep the old model going, impose low wages, and keep the technology as it was. It worked up to now. I can give you examples, but like those of you who know economic history, the first big wave, the early 19th century. The second one, the late 19th century. The third one, the one that begins in 1900. The fourth one, which was the latter half of the 20th century. What happens in that fourth wave is that in all the others, the low-tech, low-wage solution doesn't work because the workers resist it. The workers impose, in the mid-19th century, in the late 19th century, in the 1920s even, and 30s, they impose a high technology and high wage and high consumption solution on capitalism. And it has to, what? Innovators have to innovate, entrepreneurs have to be entrepreneurial, business models have to change, capitalism has to go through a revolution. By smashing the organized working class in the late 20th century, in all the centers, starting with Japan, then Britain, then United States, then Northern Europe, what happened is that capitalism removed the impetus for a high-wage, high-technology solution to the problems of the late 20th century. And instead, what we got was neoliberalism. So neoliberalism is not a new system, it's a cul-de-sac, and I argue it is a new kind of cul-de-sac which does not have a way out. And that is why we are living at a time of when the fifth long wave of capitalism wishes to take off, There is a real rollout of technology going on. Information technology is at the heart of it. But you could look at collapsing prices of real technology, of sequencing DNA. The price of sequencing DNA falls in the exact same curve as the price of Wi-Fi or silicon chips. It falls like that. And that's the revolution. That's the technological revolution. What should it lead to? Mass automation and the rapid reduction of the necessary work in society. But it's not, because neoliberalism has no impetus to do that. It has only impetus to take people like you and put them in coffee bars to earn minimum wages and stay there forever. That's the problem. So what's the solution? I argue, this is a session about socialism, and I'm going to argue that that's not the solution. That the solution is to understand what the escape route is that information technology has provided us with. It provides us with an escape route from capitalism, from the market, in three ways. First of all, it can, if we manage it correctly and use institutional changes and re-regulation, it can collapse the amount of labour, of work needed to support humanity on the planet very rapidly. It has to, because 42% of all jobs are capable of being automated in the next 10 to 15 years. That's what the Oxford Martin Institute found, the study of Internet Institute in Oxford University. It has to, and it can, collapse necessary labour time very rapidly, to the point where work-life balance would become life-work balance. Secondly, information technology is destroying the price mechanism in economics. Goods that cost nothing to reproduce have a natural cost of reproduction close to zero. The zero marginal cost revolution, it's called in mainstream economics. So information goods can, and in some cases should be free. They want to be free. They want to be lower priced than most of them are. The business models of the biggest companies on earth are premised on information remaining expensive and scarce, and yet information can be free and abundant. That's the number one actual problem. And then the final thing is, there is another thing that information is doing. Because information is manifestly the material of the next phase of the economy, and it exists socially, it is being shared socially, it has no value other than that we could share it together and work on it together. If you're working on the digital database that builds an airliner, that virtually manufactures a turbojet, you are using knowledge socially. And because of that, information is creating new forms of economic activity which are horizontal and based on sharing and based on non-ownership. So if I repeat, the price mechanism is collapsing. The labour time is becoming less and less necessary, and new forms of economic activity are there. I argue that the strategic argument, that the strategic goal of a non-capitalist, of a post-capitalist, of an anti-capitalist project should be to re-regulate the world in a way that takes those elements and does exactly what early capitalism did with factories. It clears the ground. All the remnants of feudalism were cleared by early capitalism so that factories, banks, markets could take place. If you did that, then you would create the ground for the rapid emergence spontaneously of a post-capitalist order that does not have to be recreated on the computer screen of a commissar every morning. It would recreate itself. And if I have a lot of critiques of the left governments and left movements that we are talking about, but I'll finish on this. My biggest critique of the one that is ruling this country is that it knew that. It knows what I've just said. You know, and one of the most criticised members of this government, Dragisakis, has a whole department of his ministry that is devoted to studying and fostering these non-market post-capitalist forms. But like all left governments and all left movements in the last few years, it became obsessed and sidetracked down the issues of fiscal policy. Neither socialism nor post-capitalism nor anti-capitalism can be reduced to fiscal policy. I'm not interested in fiscal policy. Fiscal policy solves itself if these things can happen. I'm going to finish, but I will say one thing. Who is the agent? Who is the agent of history if there is a different route out of capitalism? I really think, and my generation on the left in Britain spent a long time dissing this guy and ignoring him. I do think Negri was right when he said that what capitalism has created is a social factory in which everybody reproduces the system and in which everybody plays the role of both the producer and consumer, and therefore that everybody, the networked and connected individual, liberating themselves alongside their fellow people, is the agent of change for this. And that is what I think should be the discussion point in the bunkers of the Stalingrad in which you are currently living. Thank you.